So that photo that you were just looking at was from downtown Havana. And I wrote an article for Fathom Away and also on my blog, And a Perfect World. And it's and I wrote it on Cuba, about going to Cuba and volunteering there. And it's definitely one of the posts on my blog and for Fathom Away that I get the most feedback on. A lot of people have a lot of questions, especially about contacting the art center where I volunteer. So I decided to do a Periscope and do an Ask Me Anything, a late afternoon Ask Me Anything, so you guys can answer all of your questions. I also put it on Instagram and Twitter last night that I would be doing this because I know a lot of people don't have Periscope and they can watch it on Catch afterwards. And so I already did get some questions in from people. I already got some questions in from people that I will start with. Okay, so one of the main questions that I get, especially from that article because it was about volunteering there, is how do I get there? And I went with my mom in August of 2015, and we flew into Tampa, Florida, and took a charter plane from Tampa to Jose Marti Airport in Havana. There is also a service that JetBlue is offering from New York directly to Havana from New York. And that's another option. But as you guys might know, although it's kind of crazy, they really advertised and pushed this, and it was all over the news last year about direct flights going to Cuba. What a lot of those news articles didn't say is that you can't just hop on a plane and go to Cuba. You have to have a charter plane, you have to do a charter plane and you have to do a visa. And you can't go to JetBlue. They say JetBlue is offering flights to Havana. What they're not telling you is that you can't go to JetBlue.com and book a flight to Havana, Cuba. It's not like if you were, say, in Canada or many other European countries. From the U.S., for those that are watching from the U.S., I know that Periscope has a lot of international viewers, but from the U.S., we couldn't just do that. So, which is why we went through the charter service. How do you get there? What kind of visas do you have to use? The different kinds of visas. We went under a general visa, and we were going to be volunteering, but we went under the people-to-people aspect. This is if you are going to, or it's kind of for our government to prevent U.S. citizens from spending tourism dollars there. That we won't be sitting on the beach, sipping Cuba Libres and mojitos. Hey Prince, what's up? Sipping Cuba Libres and mojitos. So we went under a people-to-people visa where you're interested. The idea is that you're interested in exploring and learning about the culture. Under the general visa, there are a few different sectors of it that you can check. Like, say, number one, I don't know the numbers exactly, but say number one is volunteering through a church organization, professional reasons. I didn't write an article about it, or I did for Fathom Away, but there is also a journalist visa that if any of you guys are writers under there that you can go on, but that is a special visa that you do have to apply for, and it's not the print at home version that you can say. Under our general visa, we can print it at home, we'll have it with us. We just have to have proof that we volunteered there, which we did. With the journalist visa, you have to then get approved by the Department of Treasury, OFAC, who does the approval of the visas. So that was how we got there. And in terms of finding a volunteer organization, that was trickier than I thought it was going to be, because it's not, volunteering in Cuba isn't set up as it is in the U.S. A lot of the articles, considering with the Obamas being in Cuba this week, I read a few articles in the Times and the Atlantic about it, and they said there was a lot of street sweeping of the beggars and the prostitutes, and a lot of sweeping things under the rug. That's kind of in relation to the idea of volunteering in Cuba. We were going to Havana, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that, but in a way that I guess if you come to New York or the US or several other countries, you can Google places to volunteer, be it a soup kitchen, some countries an orphanage, a school. It is because of the fact that the internet is not as widespread there. That's probably part of it. That's one of the reasons. Another reason that I did see come up when I was researching is why it's difficult for foreigners to volunteer in Cuba is the way that the social state is set up there, especially the way that the government wants the country to be perceived by foreigners. I'm trying to find the best way to put it, but a lot of articles pretty much said that the government doesn't want you to see that there are any problems there. So why would I need to be volunteering at a soup kitchen? Because no one's starving and no one's hungry. There's not poverty there. Everyone's taken care of by the government. So that was a problem that I found that I encountered when I was researching volunteer opportunities for my mother and I. And from a lot of the forums and a lot of the places that I looked into, a lot of people found that problem as well, and that was one of the reasons. We stayed at a casa, one of the Cuba's casas that you stay with a Cuban family, and it's one of their casa particulars, and we stayed there. And what was I going to say? Sorry, we stayed at the casa, and even the host at the casa, they weren't really able to help us when I asked about volunteering there. So we booked everything before we had the volunteer opportunity set. And that was because of my assumption that it'll be easy to find a place to volunteer. I was wrong. We ended up really lucky. That's why I shared in the Fathom article and on my website, I shared the place that I volunteer with, because it was such a search for me. And I know a lot of people, based on the feedback that I've gotten, have encountered that problem about researching a place to volunteer because they want to go under a volunteer visa. And quite honestly, I think the people-to-people exchange is great, because I know for Americans, they're interested in seeing Cuba and seeing the culture and exploring it. So I think people to people is pretty appropriate. Very few Americans are going there just to go on the beach. We can go to so many other islands in the Caribbean for that. We can go to places in our own country for that. So if you're going to Cuba and you're making all that effort, the assumption is, if you're from the United States, that you're not really going to lay on the beach. So I think that shouldn't be a big problem for most of you guys in researching it. The other question, so I hope that covers about you getting how the visa that I took and how you can get a visa there. And you can go on OFAC's website and they'll have all of the guidelines. Another helpful, and the charter flight that I mentioned. So I went through ABC Charters. They are a Florida-based company, and you can fly out of Miami or fly out of Tampa. We chose to fly out of Tampa. Just the pricing for the flights were better, even getting into Tampa. And I think I can't remember if it's $25 or $50 cheaper from the charter flight from Tampa to Havana versus Miami to Tampa. But it really kind of depends on your travel schedule and your travel days, which might work better for you. ABC Travel was so helpful in terms of what visa we should go under. I kind of told them the purpose of our trip, and they pretty much took care of everything. Thank you. They pretty much took care of everything for us. So I definitely recommend them. I'm pretty sure they're Miami Cubans. Hello. Pretty sure they're Miami Cubans. They're super chill. They're super relaxed. And they're definitely on South American time. So if you're leaving the next week, thank you. If you're leaving next week and you don't have your visa, don't worry. They're not worried. You shouldn't be worried. They're very, very chill about it. And I think I was actually, when I spoke to them maybe a few months before, and then when it came down to like 2 weeks or so, I still, I didn't hear feedback from them. I'm like, you guys, are the flights booked? We're leaving soon. No, I'm not. Are the flights booked? We're leaving soon. Because if I was in college, I would have gone as a student, which is another great visa that you can go on. And they were pretty chill about it. They're like, yeah, everything's taken care of, but we hadn't heard from them, and we didn't pay yet. So I was pretty worried. They weren't. They were really cool. So if you contact them, then you so be prepared for that. And it's very a Miami Cuban way of doing business. Very cool. So that was how we got there, and the flight, just so you know, it was a regular plane. It was not full at all. There were